afternoon. Welcome to today's session. SAP Divestiture Strategy, 3 different customer stories, 1 software approach. I'm Miranda Burke. I'm the Senior Marketing Manager here at S&P and your host for today. Today's 30-minute webcast is being recorded and all registrants will be sent the link to the recording at the end. Questions can be asked at any time via the chat function on the side of your screen, and I'll jump back in the end to host Q&A. And as you know, you have the flexibility to adjust the presentation screen, and you can find that expand button right in the middle of your screen. Now introducing my esteemed colleague, Russell Salone, who is our pre-sales leader in North America. And with that, I am passing it over to you.
Thank you, Miranda. Can you hear me okay? Excellent. Well, welcome everyone. Today we wanted to take a little time and talk to you about mergers and acquisitions, specifically the area of carve-outs, doing a divestiture. This is one of the things we see a lot of our customers doing and have for a very long time. It's just kind of the nature of large business. Companies acquire and divest periodically over their lifetime. So what we wanted to do is talk to you about how we approach carve-out notion, the divestiture, and how companies can learn from what we've learned on how to get more value out of carve-out, and regardless of which side of the fence you're on, whether you're the company divesting the business unit or if you're the company trying to acquire the business unit from someone else. So we have opportunities to help you understand what the market is saying about it, the Gartners and the Harvard Business Reviews, things like that, as well as what we've learned with helping our clients achieve their divestiture goals. So one of the key things that we've learned along the way is most mergers and acquisitions and divestitures don't achieve the business value that won the business case for doing the M&A activity in the first place. And one of the most common causes for that is an under-recognition of the value of the IT part of an acquisition or a divestiture. And so we've gathered some statistics from various sources, Gartner, etc. And what we found is only 1 in 5 companies look at the IT part of the M&A activity. And even within those, there's varying degrees of how they value what they're getting in an acquisition or a divestiture, what they're giving away from an IT perspective. So that helps set the value of what's being carved out. The other thing that we see a lot of is even those companies that have done the due diligence to find out what's the IT value of what we're about to do for the business, they don't communicate that high enough into the decision-making tree. And so opportunities, there may be values gained in the acquisition activity or the divestiture that aren't properly recognized. And so part of the problem is not being aware of the value. The other part of the problem is not getting credit for it if you did your due diligence and performed your M&A activity in a way that maximized business value because you were taking advantage of the IT advantages of either the divestiture or the acquisition. A lot of the M&A consultants that are out there too, they're out there doing a good job. They're doing everything in good faith, but very few of them actually have an IT background. And so they naturally have a tendency to miss IT value when we talk about it. We can present this presentation to you afterwards so you can read all the details here. But this is basic market research that we have found to be true in our experience as well of what are the areas where we can get better value out of the M&A activity. So other area that we see a lot of struggle with companies is they're trying to figure out what is this thing we're either carving out or buying. How much data is it? How much business value is it? How many business processes does it really touch? What are the things we can take advantage of? What are the things that might be problems associated with it? And there are basically 2 ways to go about figuring that out. One is scientific approach where you do strict diligence and you research the value of each and every business process, how they integrate with one another, how well they can stand alone if they're carved out, things of that nature. Or you can go through tribal knowledge, trying to hope that people remember how the business works, or do what's called HIPPO, and that's where we take the opinion of the highest paid person. And that happens a lot more than we would like to admit. Especially from the IT world, we like to think, we've got all this organized, controlled, and we can rinse and repeat and do it over and over again and maximize value. But at the end of the day, we run into a lot of cultural issues within existing companies. And so oftentimes the clarity that can be gained through a scientific approach in valuing a subset of a business is lost because of either the lack of tools to do the detailed analysis or the lack of willingness to leverage them. So one of the things that we've been able to do with a lot of our customers is the resistance to doing that evaluation, that proper due diligence, is associated with the work effort it takes to do it. Companies are busy. They don't, they're trying to sell off a piece of the company to make their life easier. They don't want to go through a big project in the process of doing it, right? So it represents a lot of work, and we can help our customers a lot with automating that due diligence and finding out the true value and the true size and the true impact of what's associated with either divesting a subset of the business or acquiring a subset of somebody else.
Hey, Russell, could you just speak a little closer to the mic? Sorry for the interruption.
There we go. How's that? Is that better?
I think so, yes.
Okay. So what are the lessons learned? We've been doing carve-outs for companies for over 25 years. It's kind of how we got started in data transformation. And you can't underestimate the value of the advanced preparation. And this goes into what we were talking about already with, the due diligence, the determining what is it we're really talking about, what's going to impact as it leaves, how does it change the way we do business if that part of the business is no longer there. It's very, very important to not underestimate the value of the advanced preparation. The other piece is getting to that true common understanding of the business processes that are going to be affected from an IT and a business perspective. Okay, so IT understands it from what machinery and processes and software and security profiles and those kinds of things are needed to enable that business process to run. And the business looks at it as, this is my business process of how I get from A to B in an incident scenario to go out and do what I'm in business for. And that is to provide value for money. At least in general, that's what businesses are in business for. So, getting those two organizations on the same page is priceless. And by taking a technical approach to due diligence, we'll automatically win over the IT a lot quicker because they see it coming out of a program. They know it's not opinion. They know it's not people's memory, etc. And then the business has an easier way to get their answers. And so they're going to be more willing to take the time to look at the results of structured analysis and make those decisions they need to make, provide the proper carve-out, identifying the proper data, when to move it out, and what to do with it after it's gone. I'm sorry. The other piece that we're seeing a lot more of in the marketplace is selective data transformation. And that's being driven a lot by the S4 migrations because a lot of our customers have very, very large and long existing SAP ERP systems. So, they may have databases in the 30, 40, 50, 60, 100 terabyte range. And now they've got to figure out how to get to S4. So there's a lot more push to say, let's be very surgical on what we're going to take forward. And that same approach is how carve-outs work. So we get detailed requirements of what is the subset of the business we're wanting to sell off. It's no different than the way we get detailed requirements of what is the subset of that ERP system we want to move to S4, and then what do we do with everything that's left behind. So we follow the same approaches. We use the same software for the analytics and determining the scope of the carve, as well as determining how to make sure the carve works after it's pulled out. So the other thing we're seeing in the marketplace, greenfield versus brownfield, right? Greenfield is starting from scratch. Brownfield is inheriting everything you've built over however long you've had your system. More and more companies, not just for a selective data transformation requirement, just to make the data footprint smaller, but they're looking at, we've invested a lot in the stuff that really works well. We've got a lot of stuff that's still here that was great for us 5 years from now, but it's dead weight now. We want to leave that behind. And so that's another reason why we're seeing a lot of push toward the selective data transformation. And so we look at, well, what is it really going to take to get you there? So for example, let's say I want to carve out a piece of my business for sale. Well, I may need to give them, because of contractual agreements, I only need to give them the last 3 years of data. But for my historical audits and things of that nature, I may need to keep data from that old business unit for years and years to come. Well, I don't want to take all of that to my future to S4 if I don't have to. So then let's take a look at it holistically. As part of preparing for this carve out, let's go ahead and enable archiving, because we have, with our technologies, we can turn on the archiving and do the carve out with only one go live. We don't have to make those separate projects. We can also take a look at what is it going to mean for the company that's buying this thing we're divesting. Is there any reason why we shouldn't use the same technique to help them absorb what they purchased that we use to carve it out, right? So we can work both sides of the fence and help both sides of the transaction, right? You're going to have a divestiture that's going to be the other side. There's going to be an acquisition. So if we use the same software approach on both sides, we can save companies at both ends of the transaction a lot of time and help them realize more value. Also along the way, we can look at how is it we want to divest this. So for example, let's say I've got a business unit I want to carve out and sell, but the buying company only wants 3 years of history, not 10. Okay, that's fine. So we carve out the 3 that the buying company wants. Now, what do I do back in production? Do I go delete out all 10 to make that production footprint much smaller and have everything run a little cleaner, higher performance perhaps? Or is the stuff that's in there still needed for day-to-day operations, even though I'm not going to transact any new business in the unit that I carved out? And so we have the flexibility to analyze that for you and help you understand what that really means and decide what to do. A lot of our customers will do a partial carve out and then delete only the part that they carved. So 3 out of 10 years of history, leave the other 7 in there for historical analytics or whatever. Other customers will carve out the business unit that they wish to sell and then go back and delete all traces of it from the source. And we've got capabilities to support you with all the flavors of that. Also, too, along the way, a lot of our customers find out they're doing things like, I'm going to carve off my on-prem ERP solution, a business unit that I want to sell to somebody who operates only in the cloud. So as part of that carve-out, I need to get the data out of the on-prem and send it to the cloud. And our technologies enable that to be, again, done in a single downtime. So we can carve it out and write it to all in one step, even if there's a platform change, an operating system change, database system change. All of those things can be absorbed in the single carve-out transformation. So when we take a look at what does it really mean, I mean, you look at modern ERP systems, and they're very large, they're very complex. They touch almost every part of the business. And so we have to ask some questions. If I want to do a divestiture, if I want to sell off a piece of my SAP solution and the business that goes with it, I have to ask first and foremost, can that business operate standalone? Can that subset operate as its own business? So that's one of the things we look at is how compartmentalized is it? The most common compartmentalization, because it's supported so well inside of SAP, is that company code or legal entity level. So if you're carving out at the legal entity level, that's going to be a well-supported encapsulation by the SAP data schema, and it's going to give you a way to carve out a subset of your business in a very discrete, finite way. If it isn't quite arranged that way in your current solution, then we might have to get a little bit creative on how we take out that subset of the business. So perhaps it's not a whole company code; it's a part of a company code, and it's these 15 purchasing organizations and these 37 plants. Okay, well that gets a little more complex. But with our tooling and technology, we have the ability to build that subset for you, put it into a new SAP system, and prove that it still works. It can still operate as a standalone business unit, which is what, at the end of the day, you're talking about with a carve-out. You're trying to carve out a piece of your business and sell it to someone else. Then The other thing is we have to take into account the legal and regulatory compliance requirements, because what ends up happening a lot of times in a carve out is those become shared. So the business unit that we're carving out has, I'm sorry, I'm getting a lot of background noise. The business unit we're carving out, say, for example, has to have 3 years of history because of the requirements of the purchasing company. And then again, we had 10 years of history in our source system. What do we do with, okay, what if there's an audit that crosses this year all the way back to 7 years ago? So we have to work out those agreements and how we're going to share that historical data with the acquiring company. Do we give them a whole copy of the history in a read-only format? You know, those are the things we need to work out. And with our software, with the selected data transformation capabilities, we can define those rules right up front to meet both of the company's business needs, because the company that's selling still has to function, they still have to follow their rules, and the company that's buying has to have enough data to make sure they can prove their own compliance as well. So these come together and create very unique challenges that end up taking a lot of very custom solutions for customers that are trying to do an exercise like this without automation. And that's what we're here to help with. We've got the automation in the box. It helps you get to where you need to go much more quickly, and we keep track of all of these other requirements like shared regulatory, etc. You know, we're here to provide advanced automation assistance to help you deliver a functioning and independent SAP operating unit or business unit, meet compliance requirements, and provide transparency of the business value both to the company divesting and the company purchasing. We want to help everyone understand what is the true value of what is being sold, and that we can help with through our automation-assisted due diligence and value mapping. See if I can get my mouse to work. There we go. Now, one of the things that we're seeing more and more and more of, and I mentioned this briefly earlier, is we've got these companies that have been running SAP for quite some time, 10, 15, 20 years or more. And they have very, very, very large data footprint, 30, 60, 70, 100 terabytes. We're working with a company right now that is growing at 1.5 terabytes a month, and they're already at 170 terabytes. And we're trying to figure out how to get them to S4. Okay, so we understand. These are real challenges that are in the marketplace, and they're coming to the forefront more and more frequently as we get closer and closer to 2027. So we are in the business of doing data transformation. It's all we do. We don't get outside that. We're not a consulting firm. And so we can focus our resources on solving those really, really big data transformation problems. You know, we've got companies in pharmaceuticals, technology services, energy, aerospace, and they're dealing with enormous amounts of data. And those same companies that have enormous amounts of data are also the ones that can afford the least downtime. You know, they come to us and they say, we got to move 70 terabytes and we can only be down for 48 hours. Well, okay, that's a little tricky. But that's all part of the services we offer, and that's under our envelope of services called near zero downtime. So we're in this business to do big data. We're in this business to help you maximize the value of a carve-out, maximize the value of an acquisition, maximize the value of a system consolidation or migration to the cloud, whatever it takes you to get through this business transaction you've chosen. In this context is M&A for divestiture or carve-out, but we can help with all the angles and aspects of M&A as well as transformation and system consolidation. Let's do a quick time check here. So 3 case studies that we promised in the title. These are ones we've worked with over the years. We have currently, we just crossed the 16,000 project mark, where we've had 16,000 successful data transformations. Of those, we're just under 300 S4 migrations, and we're working on several S4 to S4 for those companies that were early adopters of S4 and are now trying to move either S4 to the cloud or upgrade, things of that nature. So one of the things that Airnav had to concern themselves with was a really, really tight schedule. And so they had a 5 terabyte source system. The carve out they needed to do was only going to pull out 800 gig. So what that meant was they could pull out a subset of this and get it done very quickly. The previous approaches they had available was to copy the entire client and then go back and try to write code to lead out the things they didn't want, things of that nature. So you're by that very nature, you're having to copy everything across, which takes a lot longer. With our selective data transformation technology, we were able to pull out just the data they needed and copy that across very quickly, which extended what they believed was possible because they'd only been dealing with what was capable with other technologies. And so, if you think something's not doable, it limits your thoughts and your expectations for what you can accomplish as an organization. And we were able to bring this to the forefront, help them understand how our technology could help them. We got them live in only 9 months. They met their downtime requirements, and they were able to pull out exactly the subset of the data they need. Excuse me. One of the other key things that comes up when we talk about doing a selective data transformation, especially in the carve-out world, is the history. Okay, so I don't know if you've ever tried to do a history transformation in an SAP environment. It's very, very challenging because configuration changes over time. So if you're trying to go through the application layer and repost everything to generate the history, that means you have to change your configuration month after month after month, posts each month. It's an absolute nightmare. And so most companies end up just accepting they're going to have to leave their history behind. But with our technology, we're reading and writing from the database. We're licensed to do so without voiding your warranty, so don't worry about that. And it allows us to sidestep the obstacles that are associated with the application layer. So what does that mean? So let's say, for example, we carve out a company code that has 5 plants within it. And the receiving company wants those to be all rolled into one with all the history. Well, we can do that for you. We can do that as part of the carve-out. We'll select all 5 plants. We'll select all the data related to that company code. You tell us how you want those 5 plants collapsed into one, what the new plant's going to be, and we will go retrofit all the history as if the company only ran with 1 plant. And that's a differentiating technology we have. Not many companies in the world can do that, and it's something we've been developing for over 25 years. It's part of our bread and butter. It's as they say, it's ragu. It's in there. And this is a more recent one. This was a carve out from S4 to S4. And this was what I talked briefly about earlier. This is a company that had been live on S4. And they've gone through upgrades and they grew and they decided to divest a subset of their company. And the company that was choosing to buy the divestiture was also on S4. And so we were able to pull out the subset of data that matched the description of the divestiture, as well as help them import it into the receiving company's S4 system, even if the software releases weren't identical. As long as the database schema was unchanged, in other words, they weren't radically different in their software release, we can copy them directly across. If there are exceptions to that, then we can map those transformations as well. So that gives us the ability to selectively bring out the data and then selectively put the data on the other side. Again, as mentioned earlier, we can help with both sides of that transformation transaction. Right? We can help with the carve out, the divestiture, and we can help the receiving company with the acquisition and the merge. So we're here to help you from end to end, help you accomplish more than you thought you could with selected data transformation. We're here to help you achieve better value in carve-outs, and we can also help you on the other side too. If you're the acquiring company, we can help you with carve-in or the merger. And so we're here to help with all different types of selected data transformation. And today, I hope I was able to share some insights for you on the specifics of a carve-out. Okay, so let me just move on to the next slide here. So some key takeaways. We've learned that a lot of missed synergies and value gets left behind because of an underappreciation of the value of the IT part of the acquisition. Other thing is when we look at not just we're buying a business unit and we're buying the enhancements that previous company put in it, i.e. the IT added value from a business functionality and process perspective. Well, there may be other things in there as well that can add value to us, like how the integration is working with interfaces and business partners and things of that nature. And so the other part of a lot of the missed value in carve-outs and acquisitions is not taking advantage of everything that's there in the source, and also not bringing tools to bear, IT technology, to help with the automation of the process. You know, let's let the software take care of all the checking the boxes and the drudgery, so that our business owners can take advantage of maximizing the value of the transaction. We also have integrated into all of our products and services the automation of audit and activity tracking and things of that nature. So we bring to the table templates that do the right steps in the right order at the right time. And the software is automatically tracking everything for you. So you relieve of that burden of having to manually document all the activities associated with the transformation. Then we also have rules-based. So again, since we've been doing this for 25 years, we've learned a thing or two about going from here to there. Some things are always the same. Right? No matter what your business is, there's some things that are always the same. And we put those in the box. We simply check them with you, make sure that we confirm the assumption that they're the same. And if they're not, we tweak to meet your needs. But it sure cuts out a whole lot of time, starting every time over and over again, field by field, checking the source and then chart. By bringing predefined business objects, data conversion rules, things of that nature out of the box, we can save an enormous amount of time for you. The other thing is we have to go through cycles, right? Every transformation or every time you do a divestiture, it's not a one and done, right? You don't write one really elaborate SQL command and poof, you've copied out all the data for a business unit. You have to test it over and over again. Well, each time you run a test, there's opportunities for steps to be missed. But by putting it in the software, all of those things that we know don't need to change this time around will, in fact, execute exactly the same way they did the first time. And so we can focus only on the exception, only on the things that didn't work. And again, we've done this thousands of times. Odds are we've seen what you're dealing with. And so we like to come to the table and offer our customers an alternative to the brute force approach of carving out and giving you an opportunity to leverage 25 years of software development to get you where you have the right data in the right place at the right time. The right data meaning we understand exactly what needs to be carved out, put it in the right place. Are we going to hand it to the buyer as a bunch of tapes or a big old backup export file, or do we want to actually post it into their system on the target side as part of our full service? And then at the right time, we got to get it there when you need it, right? We got to hit your downtime windows. We got to make sure we get the project done on time. And the automation helps with all of those. Helps us with the selection. Most of what we need to select, we've already got mapped in the box. It helps us with getting it to the right place because our software doesn't care where it's coming from or where it's going to in terms of the data. We read it from the source, we write it to the target. And then again, the right time, because this is automation, it does accelerate things, it does reduce risk, it reduces the opportunities for project delays. And so that's how we can get you. So Miranda, how are we doing on time?
We are doing good. We are a couple minutes over, but how about this? Maybe I'll just do a quick plug on live events that we're going to be at starting next week. We are sponsors at the SAP Insider Conference in Las Vegas. One session I'm really excited about, we're going to be speaking with our customer Kodak on how they achieve their S4HANA selective data transformation to S4HANA and Azure in one go live. So if you're an SAP customer and you're on this webinar, we do have 3 customer badges for free if you're interested. So I'll follow up after. In April, mid-April, we'll be in Philadelphia at the SAP headquarters for the ASUG Center of Excellence and Enterprise Architect Conference. And then if you're interested in joining us for another online session, we are talking April 5th. For battling to get your SAP data into the cloud. So I'll make sure to send out these links with the recording and the PowerPoint presentation after this. All right, we have one quick question here, Mr. Russell. What are the top 3 technology and data missed opportunities that S&P has seen? Your top 3 or maybe top 2.
Okay. Yeah, let me ponder that a little bit, because again, the opportunity definition is based on the receiver, it's not the identifiers, right? But yeah, the first and foremost one is we thought we got the right data and we didn't, right? I mean, carving out a piece of an SAP solution and having it fully functional in the target system, you know, that's not trivial. There's nothing simple about that. And, you know, we've seen a lot of customers go through a carve out and, you know, they finish the transaction, the receiving business says, yay, barely, everything is wonderful. And then they go, oops, right? And that's where our repeatable templates and, you know, the automation of what I call the automation assisted due diligence, helping us really understand exactly what data needs to come out, and then confirming that's exactly what data that did come out and was handed over. We can really add a lot of value in that space, because at the end of the day, that's by far the number one pain point. The other is not understanding what do we buy, right? Did I just buy a bunch of SAP standard processes and a bunch of SAP standard data, or is there all these other cool little gizmos in there that they built that help run this? I mean, why did I buy this company in the first place? Did I buy it just because they have a good chunk of market share, or are they doing something better, right? Well, it's kind of hard to answer that question if you don't have a way to go in and look at how the system's being used in great detail from a configuration perspective, a transaction usage perspective, what custom code's out there, what custom code's being used. All of those things we can answer for you right up front. And you can identify values associated with the acquisition side of the house that you may not have ever been able to discover, and help make your business case for buying the carve out. And on the other side is, if you're on the sell side, you're doing the carve out, you don't want to give away value, right? So let's take a very good look at what it is you're carving out and what it's really, really worth, right? So we can set the price for that sale accordingly.
And that's a good segue into our last slide here. I do have one more question though. When going from ECC to S4, does S&P prepare the S4, like the customize and the fit gap? Does S&P prepare the S4?
No, so we do not do anything with configuration or data. I'm sorry, excuse me, code. We do only data. So what we do is during the analysis phase, again, what I call the automation assisted due diligence, we identify everything that needs to come across, and we can help you understand what configuration changes may need to be made because you haven't used this company code in 5 years, or here's something that's partially configured, you know, there's little bits and pieces of configuration in the configuration table, but there's no transaction usage and there's no data in the application table. If you want to clean that up, we can help you find all of that, but it's up to you or the SI to actually go do these configuration changes and get those transports across. Same thing for code remediation and code deletion. If you want to leave behind code that you no longer use, we can help you find it and say, here's the things that you don't use. And then if you want to make sure those go away, create those delete transports so that you keep everything coming from the owning source dev system, etc. And then also for code remediation, we partner with several phenomenal companies that just do it better than we could ever think about doing. So we'd like to help our customers find those automation code remediation techniques that are out there and available, but we are all about the data.
And I think that's what's so great about our free SAP system scan offer. You know, as Russell said, we have helped thousands of customers dig into their SAP system to create that foundation for their transformation initiative. So you want to know exactly what's under that hood of that SAP system that you're acquiring or divesting. So with that, I am going to conclude today's webinar. I'd like to thank everyone for your participation. Russell, thank you so much for a great overview. And like I said, I'll make sure to send out the recording and the presentation slides at the end. All right, we will see you at the next webinar. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.